I want you to picture yourself on a boat.
Okay, I'm there.
Right, so it is a perfect sunny afternoon, and you're floating on this pristine 42-square-mile lake right in the southern Adirondacks.
It's pretty ideal.
It really is. You're surrounded by rolling mountains. You've got people water skiing past you. Maybe you have a fishing line cast out over the side. It's, the absolute picture of idyllic summer recreation.
Oh, absolutely.
But what you are totally unaware of as you just sit there enjoying the sunshine is that directly beneath your boat are the drowned ruins of 10 entire communities.
It's a really striking image to hold in your mind.
It is.
I mean, the sheer contrast between that sparkling, joyful surface and the silent, completely submerged history resting right below the hull of your boat.
It's wild to think about. And that hidden history is exactly what we are exploring today. We've got a stack of sources here, specifically anchored by a really detailed June 2026 update from the Fulton County Center for Regional Growth.
Right, because they're in the process of building something new.
Exactly. They're building something called the Great Sakanaga Lake Discovery Center. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore the incredibly bittersweet history of this lake and, look at how Fulton County is trying to harness that buried past for future tourism and community education.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this because the sheer scale of this hidden history honestly blew my mind when I started reading through the materials. We're talking about whole towns that just vanished.
It really is a monumental story. And I think it brings up some profound questions about how communities navigate their own development over time.
Right.
Like, how do you balance undeniable economic and public safety progress with the preservation of a deeply difficult, painful local history?
Yeah, that's a tough line to walk.
It is. And that is the exact tightrope Fulton County is trying to walk with this new Discovery Center.
Well, before we can even get into what this new Discovery Center is going to look like, I feel like we have to understand why it needs to exist in the first place. Because as I was looking through the background material, I realized this isn't a natural lake at all.
No, not at all. It's entirely man-made, and it was actually born out of an absolute crisis.
Really? What kind of crisis?
So if we go back to the early 20th century, the Hudson River was causing severe, just devastating flooding every single spring.
Oh, wow.
And we aren't talking about like a few flooded basements here. The river would swell with snowmelt and spring rains, and it would sweep away infrastructure, causing millions of dollars in property damage year after year.
That's massive.
It was. And more tragically, it was costing human lives. So the situation was completely untenable. New York State realized they had to intervene to control the water flow, and the solution they landed on was radical.
So what did they actually do? I mean, how do you just stop a river like the Hudson from flooding?
You build a bathtub.
A bathtub.
More accurately, a massive catch basin. The state legislators passed an amendment that basically allowed for the creation of state-owned reservoirs. The idea was to control the water upstream before it ever reached the vulnerable towns below. So for this specific area, they decided to build the Conklingville Dam.
Ah, got it.
Yeah, they constructed this massive barrier and officially closed the gates in 1930. And by doing that, they intentionally flooded the entire Sakanaga Basin.
Wait, they intentionally flooded it? To what level?
They allowed the water to rise to an elevation of 771 feet above sea level. It essentially created a massive holding tank for the spring runoff.
But the basin they used for this giant bathtub wasn't just an empty valley, was it?
No, and that is the crux of the tragedy. That basin was home to vibrant, established communities. You had farms, businesses, homes, entire generational histories.
Just sitting right there in the valley.
Exactly. To build this dam and stop the Hudson from flooding, New York State executed one of the largest eminent domain actions in its history.
Let me stop you right there for a second, because eminent domain is one of those terms that, gets thrown around in zoning meetings. But what does it actually mean for the people living in that valley?
It's the legal power of the government to take private property for public use.
As long as they offer compensation, right?
Right, provided they pay for it. In this case, the state determined that the public safety of the Miniso, protecting the downstream cities from deadly floods, outweighed the property rights of the few.
So they just forced them out.
Yeah, the state legally forced the residents to sell their land and leave.
Over 3,000 residents forced out of their homes across 10 different communities. I just can't wrap my head around the logistics of something like that.
It's almost unimaginable.
How do you even prepare an entire populated valley to be permanently put underwater?
The scale of the clearing operation sounds almost apocalyptic, honestly. Because Before the water could be allowed to rise, the state had to prepare the land so that it wouldn't become this toxic, hazard-filled swamp.
Oh, that makes sense. You can't just leave everything as is.
Right. So first, they brought in armies of workers to clear 12,000 acres of timber. You can't leave forests standing, or the rotting wood ruins the water quality.
And I imagine dead trees become massive hazards for future boats, too.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But what about the towns themselves, like the
They
buildings?
burned them.
Wow.
Yeah, once the residents packed up what they could carry and vacated, workers went in and set fire to everything that was left standing. Homes, barns, local businesses, churches.
They just burn them to the ground.
Burn them to the ground so the structures wouldn't become underwater hazards.
Yeah.
But honestly, the most staggering logistical hurdle was the cemeteries.
Oh,
They
man.
couldn't simply flood the graves. The state had to physically dig up and relocate 3,872 gravestones.
You're kidding.
No, they had to move generations of ancestors to higher ground. What's fascinating here is the intense tension between the greater good and individual devastation.
Yeah, because on one hand, the state had a very real, very urgent obligation to protect the public from the deadly Hudson floods.
Exactly. The dam was a necessary piece of public safety infrastructure.
But the human cost fell entirely on those 3,000 displaced individuals who had to literally watch their family homes go up in smoke.
It is a stark reminder of the cost of public works, and it created a landscape that is just frozen in time beneath the water.
It makes me think of like a modern intentional Atlantis
That's a great comparison.
or Pompeii, but instead of a volcano, it was a state mandate and a flood of water. And you can actually still see the scars today.
You can, yeah.
Our sources note that during low water periods, visitors can occasionally catch glimpses of the empty stone foundations where buildings used to stand. Or they can see the stumps of the massive trees that used to line the streets of these river towns. It's incredibly haunting.
That haunting reality makes the rebranding of the area quite interesting from a sociological perspective, too.
Oh, right, the name change.
Yeah. When the valley was first flooded, the resulting body of water was accurately called the Sacandaga Reservoir. It was a functional, utilitarian name for a piece of flood control infrastructure.
But eventually, the state officially renamed it the Great Sacandaga Lake.
They did.
They rebranded it specifically to encourage tourism, which honestly feels so jarring when you know the history.
It really does.
There is this massive disconnect between the surface level recreation, the jet skis, the pontoon boats, the lakeside cabins, and the tragedy resting on the lake bed.
Oh, for sure.
The Fulton County Tourism Director, Scott Huns, actually gave a quote in the center's update that sums it up perfectly. He pointed out that while the lake today is an amazing recreational asset, he said, quote, "In yesteryear, it was the worst thing ever."
It is a profound contradiction. I mean, you have a site of historical trauma that has morphed over nearly a century into a premier vacation destination.
Yeah.
And the people recreating on the water today have absolutely no malicious intent. They're just enjoying a beautiful, natural-looking resource. But as the generations pass, the memory of those 10 drowned hamlets fades.
Which brings us to the architectural and curatorial challenge of the decade for Fulton County.
Exactly.
How on earth do you build a tourist attraction that respectfully honors that level of sacrifice without making it so utterly depressing that no one wants to visit while they're on their summer vacation?
That is the exact problem the Great Sacandaga Lake Discovery Center, or GSLDC, is designed to solve.
Okay.
The center is scheduled to open its doors in late spring or early summer of 2026, and the planning behind it has been incredibly deliberate. They didn't just want to drop this building anywhere.
Yeah, our sources mentioned they had 3 specific criteria for where to build this thing.
Yes, and they were non-negotiable. First, the building had to actually offer a view of the Great Sacandaga Lake.
Right, you need that visual connection to the water you're learning about.
Second, it had to be on a major roadway to naturally catch passing traffic. And third, they wanted it next to a walkable downtown area with amenities, so visitors could easily grab lunch or shop afterward.
And they found a spot in the town of Northampton, right, with access to the village of Northville.
Precisely. They found a private property that checked every single box. It sits right at the start of the Northville Placid Trail.
That's perfect.
It is. The location is highly strategic to draw people in, but the interior design is where they really attempt to thread that needle between a solemn memorial and an engaging tourist attraction. The main exhibit space inside the building is called the Rotunda.
Tell me about what goes into a space like that. How do they break down such a heavy history?
They do it by breaking the narrative into distinct, digestible experiences that cover the full spectrum of the region's history, not just the tragedy.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. For instance, they have an exhibit called Coney Island of the North.
Okay, I saw that title in the notes. What made it the Coney Island of the North? Were there, like, roller coasters in the Adirondacks?
In a way, yes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, before the valley was flooded, the Sacandaga area actually featured a massive amusement park, complete with a carousel, a roller coaster, and vibrant dance halls.
I had no idea.
It was a major summer destination at the turn of the century, accessed by an extensive railroad network. So this exhibit explores the joy and the bustling culture that existed before the water came.
That's a great way to start.
Then from there, visitors move to an exhibit called Harnessing Nature, an engineering marvel, which gets into the nitty-gritty mechanics of how you actually construct something as massive as the Conklingville Dam.
I imagine they have to tackle the flooding eventually, though.
They do. They don't shy away from the reality of the eminent domain process. There's a dedicated exhibit simply called The Flooding.
Do they just show pictures?
It's more than that. It doesn't just display static photos. It features dramatic before, during, and after videos, visually documenting the water rising and swallowing the landscape.
But the emotional core of the center, based on the architect's description, is the exhibit they call Ghosts of the Hamlets. And I have to say, the design choice here is brilliant.
Oh, the architect, Ed Anker, described it as a respectful homage. What did you think of the layout?
I love how physical it is. They designed this massive nautical-themed terrazzo map of the lake and set it directly into the floor.
Yeah, it's striking.
So when you walk in, you are physically standing on the geography of the history, and surrounding this massive floor map are 10 video kiosks, one for each of the 10 drowned communities.
Which is such a personal touch.
Exactly. So if your family used to live in, say, the Lost Hamlet of Day Center, you can go to that specific kiosk and see the photos, the artifacts, and hear the specific stories of that lost town. It gives individual identity back to the places that were erased.
It grounds the abstract statistics into deeply personal narratives. And the building itself wraps around this history in a way that really reflects the region.
Right.
They designed it in a modern Adirondack vernacular style. Visually, it echoes the grand rail stations that existed in nearby Fonda, Johnstown, and Gloversville back in 1867.
I also read they're building it with some really interesting modern materials.
Yes, the construction is highly focused on sustainability. They're utilizing geothermal heating and cooling systems to eliminate fossil fuel use for climate control. And the structure itself relies heavily on a material called glulam.
What is glulam?
It stands for glue-laminated timber.
Okay.
Instead of cutting down massive old-growth trees to get large structural beams, manufacturers take smaller scraps of wood, essentially manufacturing waste products, and glue them together under immense pressure.
Oh, that's clever.
It is. The resulting beams are actually stronger than solid steel, but they're incredibly environmentally friendly. The county wanted the building to be as operationally efficient as possible.
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to picture this whole setup.
Okay.
You have this beautiful, sustainable building. In the middle of it, you have a terrazzo floor map dedicated to the ghosts of the hamlets, with kiosks showing videos of people's homes being burned and flooded.
Right.
But then, right down the hall, the sources mention a children's discovery spot where kids are playing interactive map games. The tourism coordinator, Carla Colby, literally calls it learning by having fun.
Yes, she does.
Isn't that a massive tonal whiplash? I mean, does it feel a bit tone-deaf to balance a site of literal historical tragedy with a fun, interactive play zone?
That is a very fair critique, and it's a debate that curators have all the time. But it speaks directly to the core philosophy of modern public history.
Which is what?
That true historical preservation requires active engagement from the public. If a memorial is completely somber, heavy, and depressing, it essentially becomes a mausoleum.
And people don't go to mausoleums on their summer road trips.
Exactly. A family driving up to the Adirondacks for a week of boating is not going to stop at a museum that guarantees to make their kids cry.
Yeah, that's a hard sell.
And if tourists don't visit, the story stays buried and the history dies completely. By blending the recreation, the environmental sustainability, the engineering marvels, and yes, the fun, the Discovery Center creates a welcoming environment. It basically disarms the visitor.
Ah, so you lure them in with the interactive games and the cool architecture.
And once they're inside, having a good time, They naturally wander into the rotunda and are exposed to the deeper, heavier history of the valley.
That makes total sense.
It ensures that the 3,000 displaced residents are never forgotten because their story is being introduced to new generations in a format that those generations are actually willing to absorb.
That's a great point. You can't force people to sit down and learn hard history, but you can invite them into a space where the history is impossible to ignore. And speaking of inviting people in, that brings up another fascinating part of this project. Because the Discovery Center isn't just a museum for tourists passing through. The back half of the building is entirely different.
This might be the most critical element of the entire project, honestly. The county didn't just want a static building for out-of-towners. They wanted a true community hub.
Right.
So a full one-third of the facility is dedicated entirely to an education center for local use.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. So if you want to build a community hub, who gets to decide what actually goes inside?
You ask the community.
Makes sense.
Fulton County officials actually sat down with the municipal historians from all the surrounding towns and asked them directly, what do you need?
And what did they say?
Universally, the historians said they needed space. The documents, photos, and physical artifacts of these drowned towns were scattered in damp basements or cramped municipal closets.
Oh, that's terrible for preservation. So the new center fixes that.
Yes. The center includes fully equipped research areas and secure, climate-controlled storage, specifically designed for these local historians.
That's a big deal.
It is, because climate control is vital. Century-old paper rots very quickly if the humidity isn't perfectly managed. They essentially built a municipal archive dedicated entirely to preserving the physical memory of the lake's history.
But they also built something for the kids, right? I was reading about a laboratory in the building. How are high school students using a history museum?
Well, this is where they look to the future. The center includes a fully functioning, state-of-the-art science laboratory built for local school districts to use.
Okay, that's unusual.
Right. Students from Northville High School are using the lab to actively analyze water samples pulled directly from the lake. And kids from the Broad Alban Perth High School use it for their science research program, specifically focusing on walleye stocking activities.
Wait, so they are literally raising and studying fish inside a history museum. That is incredible.
It's living biology. They monitor the fish, study the ecology of the lake, and then release them to support the local ecosystem.
I love that.
It perfectly illustrates how the county is using this project to fill community voids. It connects the deep past, the historians preserving fragile documents in the archives, with the immediate future, the high school scientists monitoring the current ecology of the water.
There's also one more space they use to bridge that gap between the past and the present. It's called the Harnessing Nature Theater.
Oh, right, the theater.
Yeah, it's a 36-seat transitional theater space featuring a massive floor-to-ceiling monitor. They use it to play excerpts from a documentary that includes actual interviews with the residents who were displaced by the flooding.
That's so powerful.
Hearing the voices of the people who lived through the eminent domain process adds such a vital human element, and local community groups can even book that theater for their own special events.
It's a highly functional multi-use space that clearly serves the locals as much as the tourists. But looking at all of this, a state-of-the-art museum, climate-controlled archives, a working biology lab, a movie theater, it raises an important question.
Yeah, how do they pay for it?
Exactly. How does a rural county afford to build and maintain something of this scale? To understand that, we have to zoom out and look at the broader economic mechanics at play.
Right, because reading through the Fulton County update, it becomes clear this isn't just an isolated passion project for a few historians.
Not at all.
The Discovery Center is actually just one prong of a massive three-part strategic plan. They're calling the overarching strategy Destination Fulton County. But the funding source is what really caught my eye.
How is it being bankrolled?
It's funded by the 2021 Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA.
Oh, the post-pandemic federal stimulus funds? That is a fascinating application of that money.
Isn't it?
Following the pandemic, Fulton County must have realized they had a unique, once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in long-term economic infrastructure rather than just short-term fixes.
And the Discovery Center is the anchor for that strategy. The county knows that hundreds of thousands of people are already driving right through their towns along the Route 30 tourism corridor.
Yeah, going right past them.
Exactly. These are families heading further north into the Adirondacks to visit massive established attractions like the Adirondack Experience or the Wild Center.
So think about a typical family road trip. You've been in the car with the kids for 3 hours, driving up Route 30, and you see a sign for a brand new interactive discovery center right on the lake.
You're going to stop.
The county's goal is to throw a lasso around those cars.
Tourism Director Scott Huns laid out the math perfectly. If they can get those families to pull over and stop at the Discovery Center for 2 or 3 hours, the visitors are highly likely to then walk into the adjacent village of Northville.
Which means they spend money.
Exactly. They grab lunch at a local diner, buy some gas, maybe do some shopping on Main Street. It captures tourism dollars that were literally just driving past them at 60 miles an hour.
It is a classic economic capture strategy. But the Discovery Center is only prong number one of the ARPA funds. The other two prongs of Destination Fulton County are where the holistic nature of this planning really reveals itself.
Okay, I have to laugh at the juxtaposition of the ARPA spending here because the other two prongs are so wildly different from a historical museum. Tell me about prong number 2.
Well, prong number 2 is the construction of Parkhurst Field in Gloversville. It's a nonprofit Little League baseball complex.
But it isn't just any baseball field, is it?
No, it has serious historical pedigree. It's being built on the exact footprint where early 20th century baseball legends like Cy Young, Honus Wagner, and Doc Graham used to play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the county is building it up into a premium facility specifically designed to attract massive travel baseball tournaments from all over the Northeast.
Travel sports are huge business.
Huge.
So we have a touching historical museum on a lake, a legendary historical baseball field designed for travel tournaments, and prong number 3. This is my favorite part.
There we go.
Prong number 3 is the installation of a massive 15-mile sewer line along Route 30.
I know it sounds disjointed on the surface.
It's the least glamorous trifecta of funding I have ever heard of. Museum, baseball, and 15 miles of sewer pipes. Make it make sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is actually a masterclass in regional planning. Let's chase the logic of the strategy. You build a beautiful discovery center to attract thousands of tourists off the highway, and you build a world-class baseball facility to bring in thousands of traveling families for weekend-long tournaments.
Okay, yeah.
But when those thousands of people arrive, what do they need? Where do they eat? Where do they sleep? Where do they use the restroom?
You need the sewers.
You need the sewers. You absolutely cannot have high-density commercial development. You can't build large hotels, open busy restaurants, or sustain big retail spaces without municipal wastewater infrastructure.
Because a septic tank isn't going to cut it.
A septic tank cannot handle a hotel full of baseball teams. A 15-mile sewer line isn't glamorous to cut a ribbon in front of, but it is the invisible backbone that makes the entire tourism economy possible. The baseball field and the museum will fail without the capacity to support the crowds they attract.
That is brilliant. It really is. You build the attraction to give people a reason to come, but you have to build the pipes to actually handle them when they get there.
Exactly.
It shows that Fulton County isn't just thinking about how to get a quick influx of cash tomorrow. They're laying the groundwork for decades of sustainable, managed growth.
It's a synthesis of restitution, ecology, and economy. The Great Scandiga Lake Discovery Center operates on multiple levels simultaneously.
Yeah.
It acknowledges the trauma of eminent domain, it provides a classroom for environmental stewardship, and it serves as the linchpin in a much larger economic revitalization strategy.
It really ties together these completely disparate elements. You have the heartbreak of losing your family home to the floodwaters in 1930, the joy of a modern high schooler learning about Wally ecology, the legacy of Honus Wagner playing baseball, and the absolute unglamorous necessity of a 15-mile sewer pipe.
And somehow, in Fulton County's vision, they're all seamlessly connected.
Because a community isn't just one isolated thing. It's its history, its infrastructure, its ecology, and its economy all interacting at once. The Discovery Center is just the focal point where all those elements finally meet to tell a cohesive story.
Well said.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is a shift in perspective.
I agree.
The next time you're out enjoying a beautiful recreational spot, whether you're boating on a pristine lake, hiking a quiet trail, or setting up a picnic in a sprawling national park, take a moment to consider the ground beneath your feet.
It's a sobering exercise in awareness. We often assume our parks and lakes have simply always been there, just pristine gifts of nature waiting for us to enjoy them. But the landscape of human progress is frequently built directly on top of something or someone else.
Which leaves us with a lingering question to think about long after this deep dive is over. If progress almost always demands some kind of sacrifice from someone, how many other beautiful landscapes out there are hiding a ghost town just beneath the surface, just waiting for their own discovery center to finally tell their story?